Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal, and the next expansion for World of Warcraft, Midnight, is actually fast approaching. I mean, in just a handful of days, we're getting the beta. Shortly after, at some point, we'll be getting patch 11.2.7, then the pre-patch, and then the release soon after. And the next chapter of the World Soul Saga is coming in fast, a lot faster than anybody would have expected. With that, this does mean you're going to have less and less time in order to actually get prepared and ready for Midnight, and you will want to do things in order to get ready ahead of time. I mean, there'll be so much content to dive into, from the housing and the whole decoration system, so many different class changes, a massive overhaul to how the game plays, and add-ons, and you want to make sure that you're starting off this new expansion off on the right foot from the get-go, especially if you're somebody who is interested in potentially working on rewards right now so that you can receive them once Midnight launches. So for today's video, I wanted to go over 5 things that I think you should really start working on right now today in order to have all of those things prepped and ready for when Midnight launches, so you can have as good of an early start with a brand new expansion. As always, if you guys want to see more regular updates for Midnight or War Within as we're getting to the tail end of this expansion, be sure to follow the channel and subscribe. But otherwise, let's dive right in. So right now, one of the things you should be doing if you're currently playing, especially during Legion Remix, is leveling up your characters ahead of Midnight. Like, if you're someone who always wanted to play multiple alts into a new expansion, but always never really enjoyed that questing and leveling experience, Legion Remix is the fastest method for you to level up a whole army of alts ahead of brand new content. It is the quickest method, and it's incredibly fast because of the buffs that you get through your Warbound. As you level more characters in Legion Remix, as you finish up all the different Broken Shore zones, quest lines, and research quests, you will be able to get a Warbound buff that allows you to level faster and faster and faster, and it basically stacks up infinitely. With more characters you level, the more research quests you complete, the more experience bonuses all of your alts are going to get. And there's so many different ways of leveling. Like, if you're just tired of the same old quests and open world content, spamming dungeons is incredibly quick, especially if you're a tank or a healer. You'll be able to get a ton of levels very rapidly with so many players walking around powered up with their artifact weapons. I mean, you're going to be blazing through content incredibly quickly. Of course, you also have level up raids, which are also super lucrative when it comes to amount of XP you're going to be able to earn per boss slain, with so many raids on the roster that you can run on LFR and on normal even while you're leveling a character. And even for those of you that are not fans of group content, like you don't want to touch dungeons, you don't want to touch raids, there's also a new fun way of leveling, which is called Heroic World Tier, which essentially just gives open world content and questing a bit of a new facelift by making all the enemies a little bit more dangerous, a bit more challenging, have various different affixes, but also rewards you with a ton of experience for doing more challenging content that's a lot more engaging and a lot more fun, and allows you to play WoW in a brand new way. Now, as you do level those characters, I don't think it's really worth to gear those characters, at least not right now. At the moment, I would just focus on getting as many characters leveled up to max level, because we're going to be getting a bunch of cool new gearing catch-ups come patch 11.2.7 with a ton of time walking content, which means really easy gear with turbulent timeways and the anniversary event. So don't really focus on gearing out those Legion Remix characters, as it does take a little bit of time. I would just focus on gearing them after some brand new catch-up content arrives in about a week or so. Another thing you can start working on with Midnight is on your housing decoration catalog, as many of the decorations you'll be able to use once Midnight comes around will come from achievements. Achievements you can start working on right now. Homebound is the add-on that we actually took a look at on the channel a lot earlier in the weeks, and it's essentially the only add-on that I know of right now that tracks all of the different rewards that you can get that are decorative rewards from achievements in game. And they keep updating this fairly regularly. Not only did they update the actual UI, but they also are adding even more additional items to the roster, and even let you preview what those items look like and tell you which quests are required in order for you to be able to obtain some of those different components. We did a video on Homebound a while ago, so I'm not really gonna rehash everything that I said here specifically. I am, however, gonna have that video linked in the description of this video if you're looking for a more detailed look at the actual add-on itself and how to get it set up and what it can do for you. But it essentially just gives you a full catalog of things you can start working on from all the different expansions, from achievements, different quests, as they're continuing to update this add-on pretty regularly, which allows you to start working on your housing decorations a little bit early ahead of midnight. For those of you that already have midnight pre-purchase, however, will actually start to get access to housing feature in the patch 11.27, which is actually pretty soon. So many of you that start working on this right now will actually start to get the benefits of the home decor a lot earlier. Next, once midnight arrives, there's going to be a brand new mount collecting reward, as mount collecting in WoW is its own form of minigame, and a popular one at that. And it's honestly just about everyone's favorite pastime, farming mounts from either old dungeons and old raid content, or possibly from open world rares, which is my favorite in particular, achievements, reputations, and there's so many PvP mounts and so many ways to obtain additional new rideables to your collection. Gathering mounts also comes with its own form of a milestone reward. Like for every 100 mounts that you collect, you're able to get a free bonus mount to add to your collection. The last mount that was added for a mount collection reward was the Otherworldly Auto Carrier, which was awarded for players that have had 500 mounts added to their collection, or rather 500 mounts that a single character can ride, to be more specific. And since then, they haven't really added any reward since, but they're adding a brand new one in midnight, and it's going to be a purple bird, which is essentially the Emergensil Anurulus bird, but in a purple variant. And while it is a recolor, it is definitely one of the more striking mounts. A lot of players are still trying and going after the Dragonflight Owl bird, which looks amazing, but this purple variation is going to be something that to some players actually might be a little bit easier to achieve, since the raid one has a very incredibly low drop rate. And this new purple bird will be awarded for players that have collected 600 mounts, which definitely sounds like a lot, but it's actually something you can start working on right now to try to break as close as you can towards adding 600 rideables to your collection. And honestly, one of the best places to start collecting new mounts might be in Legion Remix, and there's literally a vendor that allows you to trade a currency of bronze, which you collect from just about anything you do in Legion, in order to purchase a bunch of Legion mounts, brand new options, but also some of the old familiar favorites like raid mounts and even dungeon mounts that previously you couldn't obtain without some really good RNG. And that will at least allow you to start breaking into mount grinding, but there's also a lot of other mounts that you can collect that are really easy from various different cities and factions, and there's a bunch of different guides out there. There are like thousands of guides out there for like easy mounts that you can collect from various content. So if you're someone who's looking to add a purple bird to your rideables collection, you definitely want to start working on that mount collection and start buffing it up before midnight. Speaking of mounts, another unique mount that's coming out in midnight is going to be the Geargrinder MK11. This is going to be essentially a meta achievement mount, and Blizzard has actually been really ramping up more expansion meta achievement rewards as of recently. And what a meta achievement is for an entire expansion is essentially it's a goal and a task for you to complete as many mainline expansion content, but also obscure side content of an expansion to kind of get this ultimate completionism reward per se. Previously, we would have Tyvon, the goodest boy, the Clifford, the big red dog from the expansion of Dragonflight, Zaval's Soul Eater Undead Dragon Mount from the expansion of Shadowlands, as well as Johnny's Trash Pile, where you actually transform into the Loa of Trash whenever you use it. And it even allows you to keep carrying your weapons, except for the shields, which sit a little oddly on it. But otherwise, it's literally one of the coolest mounts they've ever added. So the Geargrinder is a very similar mount in that same vein. It is yet another completionism mount, but for the expansion of War Within. And you can actually start working on it right now. In fact, on this channel, we did a guide on everything you need to do in order to unlock Geargrinder MK11 once midnight launches. So I will also have that video linked in the description of this video as well, just to make sure I'm not repeating myself. But also, I think it's a good idea just for you to go to that guide specifically. There's a lot of achievements for you to get through, which sounds like a lot, but it's really not that bad. Getting all your raids, getting all your dungeons, and then doing obscure side content of every single major patch is all you'll really need to focus on, and it's really not that bad to get through once you get started. Now, another thing you should probably start doing right now ahead of midnight is setting up your UI, specifically for some of the changes that will be arriving with the midnight expansion, as add-ons are going to be pretty much purged with this next chapter of the World Soul Saga. They are, at the same time, going to make the game less reliant on add-ons and a little bit more streamlined, and allow players to have an in-game opportunity to track different abilities and even in-game dungeon and raid mechanics without necessarily needing a bunch of weak auras and add-ons to tell you exactly what to do for every single mechanic that comes out. But at the same time, they're also going to be removing a lot of the combat functionality out of many favorite player add-ons out there that many players use in order to have an easier time with a variety of end-game content. So, to start adjusting for it, many players are going to be losing a lot of the weak aura packages that help track many of their class buffs and abilities. That being said, though, now might be a pretty good time to start messing around with the gameplay enhancement feature called Cooldown Manager, which essentially will be used as a prime way for you to replace the usage of the class weak auras with a more detailed version of the Cooldown Manager, which is getting continuous upgrades in the patch 11.2.7 as well as in Midnight pre-patch and the expansion launch as well. And it's looking, ever since its initial release, a lot more customizable, as now you can actually control a lot of those cooldowns and enhancement with advanced cooldown settings. What a lot of players usually do when they set up their weak auras, however, is they usually have like bars down the middle, usually a top bar with all of your major cooldowns that you need to keep track with, which are offensive abilities or utility buttons that are necessary for you to play your class, as well as a smaller row of abilities that usually like defenses or utilitarian abilities, and you can really make it as big or as small and as large and as wide as you want to. As for the other buffs, like for example track buffs, which are usually procs, many players like to place them in the center, so as soon as they appear, you're able to keep track of any procs or any major abilities. Or if you just want to keep them like above your character, other players usually do this, and then they'll usually put up all these like bars above enemy nameplates. So if you're a class that plays around damage over times and bleed effects and diseases and dots, and you need to know when to refresh those dots, it's a pretty good idea to put it above the enemy player frame just so you can keep track of all those dots whenever they are available. They're also adding functionality for sounds, so like if let's say you get a, I don't know, a proc for your class and it's really important, you need to send that proc and spend it as quickly as possible. You'll be able to add sounds to it. There'll be flashing lights for it. They're making this a lot better. So setting up UI ahead of time, ahead of midnight, will just allow you to at least have a nice base going. And then you can further garnish it with sounds and effects once midnight pre-patch and the midnight launch finally arrives. But with that being said, as always, I do want to thank all of you guys so much for watching and hope you guys did enjoy the video. If you did enjoy it or found it informative, go ahead and give it a like, as I would very much appreciate it. Helps out my channel tremendously, helps these videos reach a much wider audience. Also, join our Discord community, especially if you want to keep up with anything new regarding Midnight Beta or any of the other or within updates. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and as always, I'll see all of you guys in the next one.